to where it needs to be. Anyway, look, I'm interested in the Antrim Sporting Mount Rushmore. I hope you all are as well, as a result of our chat here. Shane Hannon is with us. Shane, how are you?
I'm all right, lads. Listen, look, you say you're interested in it, Ger, but to leave GMAC off this list, I mean, not even leave him off the list, but, to not mention him. You've got so many to choose from. You've got Terence McNaughton. You've got AP. You've got Mary Peters. A lot to choose from there, but I was ready to celebrate. I was going to pop in a DVD, probably a Social Network, Gladiator, something along those lines. I was going to have a few cold beers tonight to celebrate, but maybe go for a few rounds with my lucky Red Seas. But to be honest with you, I'm a bit disgusted here, To not even be discussed is pretty disappointing. US Open 2010. What more can be said?
I mean, in fairness, like the OG of the... Yeah, I'm sorry. It was a complete oversight. I don't know what to say to you, GMAC. I haven't a clue. I apologise.
It's a disgrace. The other disgrace as well, lads, on a serious note, is Alex Higgins. He has to be there. I mean, whoever is on this Antrim Mount Rushmore this morning, Alex Higgins is the first name on, without a shadow of a doubt.
Go on.
Two-time world champion, 1972, 1982. Transcended the sport. There's a great documentary. I think it's still on Netflix called Mavericks, but it's a series. But goes through like Alex Higgins, Jimmy White, Ronnie O'Sullivan, how they changed the game of snooker in their own little ways. But Higgins is just those images of him calling for his child crying in 1972 after winning the world title at the Crucible are just iconic. I mean, obviously he had his troubles, but you ask anyone involved in snooker these days. I mean, I even spoke to Ken Doherty, and Ken writes in his book about Alex playing at the Goffs in Kildare for the Irish Masters years ago, and he was an usher. Ken was an usher, and Alex would have a whisper with the ushers before they play and say, "Look, if I ask for an orange juice, I mean a vodka orange juice. If I ask for a vodka orange juice, I mean a double." He's a character. I mean, he clearly changed the game. I've read his book, and look, he has some serious.
Through the Looking Glass, that one, You say he's had his troubles, right? That's blah, blah, blahing away some fairly horrific and significant issues. He was violent. I have a strong sense that anybody who is violent should not be on any Mount Rushmore. And, I think that conversation needs to be had about George Best. That conversation needs to be had about Alex Higgins. I think that, that disqualifies you. Your exterior world should disqualify you at some point from public adoration, because otherwise we're just putting up statues to slavers.
I mean, look, the point is taken, and by any means, Alex Higgins was not a perfect person, but I think that's why he was the people's champion in many ways. He did more for the sport. He kind of, because he was not perfect, people recognized the human frailty in him and kind of saw themselves in him a little bit. Obviously, some of the stuff he did was horrific. Run-ins with the law, run-ins with officials, assaults, bad relationships, drinking.
There was a death threat to Dennis Taylor.
Yeah, among many other things. I mean, he wasn't, if you ask many players, he wasn't a nice person to be around, and then he was the most nice person to be around. He was, there's two ends of the spectrum with Alex Higgins, but the fact is he brought so much joy to Irish people, and especially to people from Antrim back in the 80s. And he lived out a sad life. I saw him in his last 6 months before he died in 2010, and he was a 61-year-old man who looked at least 91 years of age.
Yeah.
When he passed away, he wasn't found for a few days in his house in Belfast. A terrible end to...
He died of malnutrition. I don't know, sorry, actually, there was definitely a story that came out that he died of malnutrition, and there was another one correcting that 6 months later. So apologies if I've got that wrong, or even bringing it up is incorrect. But I definitely remember that was immediately released, and then actually turned out that maybe it was the complications from the cancer. So, but it was credible at the time because his condition had deteriorated so badly. And by all accounts, he used to get the train down from Belfast to Dublin and hang around Dublin and then go back up to Belfast that night. So he would have been kind of spotted in the pubs and the bookies around Connolly Station quite a bit over the final few years of his life.
Complicated figure, for sure. And to ignore that in this discussion would be doing a disservice to the whole Mount Rushmore selection, but I think he has to be he has to be mentioned. I mean, he brought so much joy to Irish people. To see someone on the world stage doing what he did in the style that he did it as well. He was called the Hurricane for a reason. I mean, he flew around that table.
And look, 1972 was the grimmest year of the Troubles, and so Mary Peters wins gold and he wins the World Championship. And bear in mind, both of these events are broadcast again in colour TV to everybody's living room. So there's a I accept that there's certainly a conversation to be had around him, and maybe there's an asterisk beside him as well. So anyway, what is actually happening in the world of sport today? Yeah,
we'll kick off with the Premier League, lads. Olivier Giroud's 6th goal in 10 games. I won't read the whole thing as GMAC. It'll be a bit difficult, and I'll leave the hat on, though, for now. We might as well. But Olivier Giroud's 6th goal in 10 games, strengthening Chelsea's claim in a top 4 place in the Premier League. The French striker's goal in first half injury time, enough to give Frank Lampard's side a 1-0 win over relegated Norwich at Stamford Bridge yesterday evening. Chelsea now 4 points clear of Manchester United this morning. United do, of course, have a game in hand, though. Chelsea boss Frank Lampard says he knows they're nearly there when it comes to Champions League qualification.
It's a tough one to call. It's hard. We know our fixtures are hard. So is everybody else's, really. This is the Premier League, and it's not easy. So I think, rather than give you a sort of pointless answer, we take our 3 points. We worry about ourselves. We can sort of sit down and watch the other teams play this week now and have the FA Cup as our focus for this weekend. But there's obviously still work to do.
Wolves continue their own quest for Champions League football this evening with a trip to Burnley. Elsewhere, third from bottom Bournemouth go to Manchester City, and Newcastle entertain Spurs. All of those games kick off at 6 p.m. this evening, and then at 8:15, champions Liverpool are away to Arsenal. In the Championship last night, plenty of action. Hull's chances of avoiding relegation look a little bleaker this morning. They were thrashed 8-0 by Wigan last night, 7-0 down by half-time, and remain a point from safety. Middlesbrough increased their hopes of beating the drop with a 2-1 win over Reading, while Luton drew 1-1 against Queen's Park Rangers. West Brom's 0-0 draw with Fulham edged them a little bit closer to automatic promotion alongside Leeds, possibly. Cardiff's playoff push remains on track following a 2-1 victory against Derby, and Millwall beat Blackburn by a 1-0 to remain in the hunt for the top 6. Sheffield Wednesday versus Huddersfield finished goalless. Brentford can move within a point of the top 2 by winning against Preston this evening. 5th place Nottingham Forest hosts Swansea, who are just outside the playoff spots. Charlton can pull further away from the bottom 3 if they get the better of Birmingham, and Bristol City take on Stoke. Meanwhile, Hearts and Partick Thistle say they're incredulous to have received a charge from the Scottish FA. The clubs have been hit with a notice of complaint for taking their battle against relegation to court after COVID-19 ended the season in Scotland early. The case is due to go to arbitration next month. Some golf news this morning as well, lads. Tiger Woods has poured cold water on his potential Ryder Cup captaincy. It's been suggested that his captaincy of the President's Cup team could be a precursor to him leading the USA in Italy, but Woods claims that no discussions have been held regarding future captaincy roles. The 15-time major winner will play alongside Rory McIlroy and Brooks Koepka for the first rounds of this week's Memorial Tournament in Ohio. Woods says he'll need to get used to COVID-19 protocols.
It's going to be different. There's no doubt about it. I for most of my career, and pretty much almost every competitive playing around that I've been involved in, I've had people around me, spectators yelling, and a lot of movement inside the gallery with camera crews and media. Watching the players play over the last few weeks, that hasn't been the case, and it's a very, very different. And for the players that are a little bit older and that have played on here for a long time and have experienced it, very eye-opening, really.
Meanwhile, Jack Nicklaus insists he will not let the COVID-19 outbreak get in the way of the traditional congratulatory handshake he affords the winner at the Memorial Tournament he hosts. Nicklaus says, "I'm going to shake their hand. I'm going to walk right out there and shake your hand. If they don't want to shake my hand, that's fine. I'll give them a fist bump or an elbow bump, but I'm not going to give them COVID-19. I wouldn't put anybody in that position." He's confident he doesn't have COVID-19. Anyway, there's a 7-race card at Killarney this evening, lads, with the first off at 4:25. Meanwhile, at Downpatrick, a 7-race card goes to post at 1 o'clock. And finally, from me, Manchester United and England forward Marcus Rashford will receive an honorary doctorate from the University of Manchester later this summer. The award, which is the highest honour the university can bestow, will be for his remarkable campaign against child poverty off the field and outstanding sporting achievements on the pitch. Rashford helped FareShare collect £20 million, enabling 3.9 million meals to be given out to vulnerable children. At age 22, he'll be the youngest ever recipient of an honorary degree from the university. He joins Alex Ferguson and Bobby Charlton on the list of those who have received one.
Yeah, I really hope that his playing career continues to get better and better and better. I've changed my mind. I'm all in on Marcus Rashford now because he's one of the best humans playing football at the moment. Shane, good stuff. Thanks very much, and keep lobbying for GMAC and for Alex
Cheers,
Higgins,
lads.
and we'll see how we get on.
Fair play.
Thanks very much for that. There was one other point that if lobbying is allowed in terms of our families, in 1956, the GAA introduced individual awards for the very first time. So this is kind of before All Stars. The hurling award went to Nicky Rackard. The football award went to Sean Purcell, and my Auntie Maeve took the Camogie Award. So,
right.
Pretty exalted company for. So it was the 10 in a row they stopped in 56. They beat Dublin in the semi-final, and they beat Cork in the final, and then they won again in 67. So,
what sort of player was she, very quickly?
Forward, as far as I know, like a kind of a game-dominating, deep-lying midfielder / forward. She'd kill you, basically, if you needed killed, but she would also score if the team needed to score. So, I don't know, Nicky Rackard equivalent, whatever you need to be to do that. Right, so apologies. Where are we going next? We are going to, here's what's coming up on the show this morning for you. Going to get into the papers, going to bring you the Beef is Real, which is an old new slot that we're bringing back because, frankly, Clive Tilsley versus Hairy Hands, Richard Keys needed something, and the Beef is Real is the only way that we could do with this proper justice. 8:35. Matt Rushmore from County Antrim coming your way at 8:45. And Anson Boone is on the OTB Culture Hall of Fame. Who is Anson Boone, Eoin, for people who don't know?
Anson Boone, one of the best young actors in the world right now, North London kid who has been in 1917. He's been in Blackbird, which is going to get a big release, a lot of coverage, I reckon, later in the year because of coronavirus. He is somebody to keep an eye on for a long, long time. Coronavirus came at a pretty bad time for him, but as the interview will explain later on, he's made positives out of it, and he's already racked up quite a CV and quite an array of different jobs. So the future looks unbelievably bright for him. Is a Spurs fan, though, is the only mark against.
0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number here. OTB AM is live in association with Gillette. We don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters. It's time for the sports pages.
OTB AM.
So the front page of otbsports.com for you this morning. There's no way that at least 6 of them aren't on something. This is strong words from Lizzie Lee talking about her competition in the marathon globally. And then Clive Tilsley, upset, annoyed, baffled. Clive Tilsley axed as ITV lead commentator. Where's my support been? James McLean explains social media post. He went on TalkSport yesterday morning. It was an effing shambles. Damien Duff reopening the can of worms that is Saipan. He was like, it's very interesting from Duffer. He's like, Roy Keane was dead right to give out about the situation, but I was selfish. I was a footballer. I just wanted to get in the team and win my place. So Duffer reopening some old wounds there. Maybe. Anyway, we'll come back to that. We can definitely come back to that. So I'm going to tell you what's in the newspapers. All of the English newspapers have essentially got the same thing. It's Premier League at war. It's Pep, Jose and Klopp, and everybody has a variation of these. I'll run you through the headlines. Stop whispering about my club, look in our eyes and say it to our face. That's what Pep Guardiola wants. Mourinho says it's a circus, the circus door is open, financial fair play is dead, it's a disgrace. And Klopp says this was not a good day for football, the richest clubs do what they want. So that's the same in The Guardian there. Mourinho vents fury at disgraceful City verdict, while Klopp warns of breakaway. The Times of London is exactly the same. Klopp, City's reprieve, bad for football. Pep, the tabloids have gone for the other angle. Say you're sorry. And then fighting talk from the Mirror. Again, it's Pep, it's that same photograph of him, and here he is laughing. Say sorry. And then stay sorry is the other one. Then talks over fresh deal put on hold about Pep Guardiola. Talks can wait. So there was a lot of Guardiola. And then now, say sorry is the back of the Mail for you this morning. Some interesting stories in the broadsheets this morning. One last one from the Herald there, clear out. So they're saying that all the dead wood at Manchester United are going to be kicked out, and they're going to have a little bit of wiggle room when it comes to both salary and transfer fees. The Irish Times, obviously, here, I'm going to give you that one there instead. So Jerry Thornley, I haven't seen this anywhere else. CVC cuts Six Nations offered by half to 165 million as talks continue on new deals. So last week, Bernard Laporte was like, oh, it's going to be grand. We're going to get loads of money from this. And this week, apparently, CVC have decided that they think that maybe the price they were paying pre-COVID shouldn't be the price that they're paying post-COVID for a sport that might not have spectators at it for quite a significant future. And who knows what the value of broadcast deals are actually going to be. So at the start of March, Thornley reports the deal was about 330 million, and now the offer is 165 million. But sources believe that there'll be an intermediate point around 200 to 220 million, which was actually the original price when the conversations started. So we'll wait and see exactly what's going to happen with that one. But you don't want the price of your product to be going down by 165 million when the tide is going out and all of a sudden you're struggling financially. That Solskjaer story is also the back of the Irish Independent this morning, but good stuff here. GAA rule that casual contacts with COVID cases can keep playing. The GAA have updated their guidance to clubs about how to deal with suspected or positive COVID-19 cases, with players and personnel allowed to continue their involvement if they remain symptom-free. So Fergal McGill says it's quite simple. If someone in a club gets the symptoms of COVID, they should contact their GP. If their GP thinks they need to, they'll arrange testing. Public health then takes over. If it's negative, the player can return to activity. If it's positive, the player's COVID, public health also takes over. Public health will do an assessment of the player's movements in the previous days and will make a decision as to who should be considered a close contact or a casual contact in the GAA context. And if you're a casual contact, you're grand. If you're a close contact, then you have to quarantine. So they're going to continue to close dressing rooms and facilities. But I guess the Examiner have been kind of leading the charge on this over the last few days, and they've had a couple of good pieces, and there's another one there today, this morning. So that GAA to advise on club games impacted by COVID-19 issues is the news piece from John Fogarty. There's an interesting column from Michael Moynihan. Is our rush to return to sport a risk worth taking? And I suppose, Eoin, this is the bit where we kind of need to tease things out. There's a great line in this where he's talking about the Glanworth GAA chairman yesterday in the Examiner, saying, I think it's going to take, touch wood, it won't happen, a death from GAA-related activity for the GAA to act on it. I don't want us to be the guinea pigs to be the cause of a local death. And Michael Moynihan says, the irony which no one seems to want to articulate is that an organisation which was front and centre in aiding communities through the lockdown has the potential to revive the virus. Depending on your perspective, the GAA's return to competitive games may not be the most pressing threat to the country's health at present. We seem to be hearing a lot about flights arriving in Ireland from the dark heart of the virus in the US, as though plane loads of American tourists were parachuting in a la the Normandy landings, all of them doing their best to share their symptoms with the populace looking up fearfully as they descend. What seems far more threatening is a mass explosion of people moving all over Ireland to go to GAA games. So I think that what's freaked people out is that the Glanworth scenario was somebody came down from Dublin and obviously had the virus and I presume has come back to self-quarantine in Dublin. Obviously we wish them all the best, but this is kind of how things spread, right?
For sure, and we kind of touched on this a little bit yesterday as well, that what is going to happen in the GAA, especially the weekend after this one, when you get into, what is it, phase 4, when you can have 500 people at an outdoor gathering, isn't too far removed from scenes that people would have been rightfully disgraced at, I guess, when it came to footage being filmed on cameras. It will be safer, it will be more controlled, and there will be contact tracing, of course, but this is the first step back into spectator sport in this country. It's the first step back into spectator sport in this hemisphere, in our consciousness of how sport operates. We've been watching Premier League games in front of no fans. Like, the rugby isn't going to have any fans there next month, is it? Like, no. So the GAA is very much leading the charge in bringing hundreds of people together to watch sport happen, travelling from different places to watch them happen. Michael Moynihan's caution is very, very well placed.
I think outdoor is going to be fine. It's just making sure that they don't congregate at any point. Certainly that would be the conversations that we've had with people who've been studying this. Finally, for me, the Racing Post: enable in arc attack mode and ready to build on fine reappearance, and RTE to end extra hour-long racing broadcasts. So all those extra racing shows are finished. And then the OTB Sports app for you this morning to tell you what's up there at the moment. There's your feed, personalised depending on what sports you actually like. So Sarah Rowe talking last night, so obviously somebody signed up to our GAA feed, and you can scroll down and get the very latest podcasts. You don't even have to leave the homepage to get the latest podcasts, and then more stuff for you there as well. Although alternatively, if you do want to, you can just click on the radio button and non-stop. So we had a Robbie Keane Gold interview on before us this morning from 7 o'clock. Great stuff all day from our archives, a lot of evergreen material, and then a full list of our podcasts that you can subscribe to. And it is best if you subscribe to them, because then, and if you enable notifications anytime you want to know that we've actually updated it for whatever it is that you're interested in, we'll ping you a little message and you just click it and automatically it plays for you. It's like a little miracle in your pocket for nothing. Just search for OTB Sports in the App Store or on Google Play. Now, if you want to get in touch with us, you can WhatsApp us here. 087 9180 180 is the number, or use the hashtag OTBAM. It's time for The Beef is Real.